let's take a look at the men's Final Four first as we get started here on today's podcast. And we talked about it a little bit on Monday. Didn't go into a whole lot of detail, of course, with some of these matchups or these two matchups. And you mentioned it the other day, and I kind of want to go deeper on this here. And it's, as we kind of analyze this question, but it does appear just on first glance, looking at the bracket, that we could be looking at a de facto championship game Saturday between Michigan and Arizona. How much more have you leaned into that as you've had a chance to study and look at these things as this tournament's played out?
I'll say that's probably the case. Two mitigating factors on that. One, I think the best coach left. These are four really good coaches. I want to be clear when I say that. But I think the best coach left in the tournament is over there in Connecticut. So you've got to consider that. Secondly, the team that presents, I think, the most unique matchup challenges of these four teams is over there as well with Illinois. There's some length and some skill and this guy's 6'11", but he can pull a 28-footer that like Illinois presents. That's kind of a problem. Of course, if Illinois plays Michigan, they've already seen each other. If Connecticut plays Arizona, they've already seen each other, although Connecticut and Arizona was a long time ago. But I can unequivocally say, in my opinion, the two best teams left are meeting when Michigan and Arizona play, for sure.
Yeah, and it's that other one I think that's going to be maybe the most intriguing matchup of the weekend because, as you said, Dan Hurley, for all of his, for lack of a better term, faults, I don't think that's the correct word. He's just an odd kind of guy in today's coaching world. Maybe that's more correct to say it that way. But, can he pull this off again? Can he pull off 3 titles in 4 years with a team that, let's be honest, they were a number 2 seed, but they've kind of seemed like they're kind of all season long, but kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and here they are once again, just 2 wins away from that 3rd title in 4 years.
Yeah, it's and I want to be clear. I think this would be the most impressive of the 3 if they were to win it. He has an excellent team this year. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but you look at some of the guys he had on those first 2 titles. Right now, he didn't have a dude like what we saw on some of those teams, like a Stephon Castle or a Klingon or what have you. So I think that would be really impressive to if you go through Izzo, Duke, Illinois, and then either Michigan or Arizona, that run's going to have to be put up there with one of the best ones you've ever seen. It just is, and so I'm curious to see if
we did talk about that. We talked about that when the bracket came out about the minefield of that, and just in terms of legendary coaches, and Hall of Fame coaches, and we were looking at it from Duke's perspective, but lo and behold, here comes Hurley out of that region, right? Which that obviously puts him one more rung up on the ladder. Yeah.
Yeah. And kudos to Andrew. He pegged it. He had Connecticut coming out of this one. I don't know that he expected it taking the miracle of the 30-foot shot after the stupid Duke turnover, but still he pegged it.
He sure did. And we have it on film and video. So we can't take that away from him. Let him know that for sure. I want to talk about Illinois for just a second here because, of course, Brad Underwood is their head coach and has been there for now, 7-8 years or so. But, of course, anyone who knows Brad Underwood and is from around our area here knows that he pretty much got his start at Stephen F. Austin.
Yep.
And was pretty good there. I went back and looked at his bio here, and this is on the Illinois website. And, of course, he did get his first Division I job as the head coach at Stephen F. Austin down in Nacogdoches, which is about an hour or so from where you and I are sitting recording the podcast. And so I actually went down there yesterday, to be honest. I was on SFA campus. He was 89-14 at SFA in 3 years, which is if you know anything about the Southland Conference, it's pretty competitive year to year. To go 89-14 there is just outstanding. He was actually tied with Brad Stevens during that time for the most wins ever by a head coach in his first 3 seasons at an NCAA school. Pretty impressive. He was not going to be long for Nacogdoches, Texas. Let's just put it that way. Of course, led him to the round of 32 in 2016. Got a big upset win over West Virginia, which at the time was a 3 seed, and was defeated by number 6 Notre Dame that year in the defeated by Notre Dame in the round of 32 and just barely missed going to the Sweet 16 by 1 point, 76-75 in that game. So when that happens at those smaller schools, of course, he begins the run up the ladder, got the job at Oklahoma State, and then ended up where he is now at Illinois, again, back in the Final Four. So anyway, do have some local ties there with Coach Brad Underwood.
Yeah, I think he has done a phenomenal job there. I'm not going to say surprising because it shouldn't be with the level of success we've seen him have at other places, but just an elite job there at Illinois. And it felt like you didn't know if it was going to happen this year, but it felt like Final Four was coming. And lo and behold, here it is.
Is this Tommy Lloyd's swan song at Arizona? The more I listen to him and read the tea leaves, he could be the guy going to North Carolina.
He really could. I don't know for sure. To be honest, I haven't paid enough attention to make a bona fide prediction on that because I've been paying so much attention to the actual games themselves. But I don't know. I don't know that it should be. I feel like Arizona's a fit for him. If I'm him, I don't know that I want to go there. I don't know that I want to be like, hey, I just finally got a monkey off my back, right? And finally broke through, and now I'm going to go to the place where the expectations are going to be through the roof. You know, if he loses to Michigan Saturday, no one is going to consider that anything other than an unequivocally successful season. That's it, period. But if you go to North Carolina, you're dealing with a whole nother ball of wax there. And so I just don't know. I don't know if it is his swan song. I don't think it should be. I don't think it's a good idea if it's me personally.
You know, I thought of a couple of things. Number one, there's a story that came out yesterday that I read that there's some tension between him and his current AD, and he's having some issues there. But the other one was, and I thought this was kind of funny to even think about, it is North Carolina, and of course you do have Duke, and you have, a couple of other blue blood wannabe programs in the ACC. But I could make the case right now that he's in a much tougher basketball league.
Oh,
that it could be almost an easier job when it comes down to competing in the ACC than even it is in the Big 12.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's a much tougher league. I think the problem is, like, take Duke this year. Won the ACC regular season, won the ACC tournament, maybe with the National Player of the Year, ran into some injuries, and fell in the Elite Eight. For that fan base, that's a failure. And North Carolina would be in the same boat. That's a failure. You didn't do what your job was. And, whereas if Arizona had lost to Purdue, yeah, I feel like there would have been some frustration that this seemed like our best team. Why didn't we break through? But I don't think it would have been nearly the angst that you have with a Duke or a North Carolina. And so it's one of these deals. Arizona's in an elite basketball program. You're in an elite conference. You've just broken through. I don't know why you would do it. It'd be one thing if he was at, say, Illinois, who's a very good basketball program as well, but Illinois is not. You don't associate that with one of the top 7 or 8 programs. Arizona, you probably do. And so you've broken through at one of those and kind of found your niche. I don't know that I'd jump out of that into You have to have a supreme level of confidence. You have to have a Dan Hurley level of arrogant confidence to just decide, fine, I'm going to go there and take this program that hadn't really done anything the last few years and get it back to its glory when you're leaving a program that may be about to reach the pinnacle of its glory. That's just tough.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I could also make the case that Arizona has a little bit of tradition, in and of itself, and he has he's already gone in there and kind of rebuilt it. I've worked with supervisors and superintendents before, and inevitably when they are considering moving and taking another position, my first thing is it worth giving up everything you've already worked for? I mean, you've already done the hard work and you've built what you're doing here now. Why would you want to go start over somewhere else? And that's if it's at North Carolina or Duke or wherever you're heading to, right? Sometimes the grass, or most of the time, the grass is never greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And so that would be my caution to him. I know it's tempting. I know it's out there. It's the carrot that everybody wants, but sometimes the carrot, can be bad. It can be rotten. And I don't know that right now I would want any part of North Carolina. As you said, for the most part, man, putting yourself under that pressure. But man, and this, coaches are a different breed. They don't look at things the way I'm talking about here. So are you comfortable where you are? Can you make it work? Or are you going to go chase that brass ring and go get that shiny toy? I would not blame him for doing it. It's kind of like the Lane Kiffin thing. It's like you had a really good thing. You've built Ole Miss, but when LSU comes calling, it's really hard to tell them no. It really is.
It is.
So whoever takes that job is going to be probably leaving a place where they would be more comfortable and probably have a lot more leeway, and as you said. But man, when the Tar Heels come calling, and you put that phone down after saying no and knowing you probably will never get another shot at it, that's really tough for anyone to turn down for sure.
Yep.
One more thing about the Final Four here, and this just kind of popped into my head this week as we were looking at it again. We've talked about Michigan and Arizona being number one seeds playing each other, and you got a 2 and 3 on the other side of the bracket. Should we consider maybe reseeding the 4 teams that go into the Final Four to avoid a situation where 2 number ones wouldn't play each other until maybe the championship game?
And let me say real quick, I got one other thing that's not on here that I want to add at the end. So after we talk about this, don't move off of it just yet. But I don't like that idea. I feel like, for one, where does it end? Like where do you kind of, do you also then reseed the Sweet 16 once you get out to that? Do you reseed after? There's just a few. Well, one of the things that makes this tournament so fun is watching, a team like Iowa who pulls the upset over Florida and then goes to the Sweet 16. And if we say we're to reseed there, well, then they would have to play Houston and Illinois would play Nebraska. But instead, Iowa's playing a team that's a major rival that they've played twice that year. And it was probably the most winnable game of anybody they could have played. And it's just sort of how it fell. I could maybe see an argument if say you had Michigan and Arizona, and say on this other side you had, like, I don't know, Iowa and St. John's or something. I could maybe see that. But look, Illinois and Connecticut. Illinois was a 2 seed for a lot of this bracket projection. They slipped to a 3 late. UConn was a 1 seed until Florida went roaring hot and passed them. So the margin of difference between Michigan and Arizona and Illinois and Connecticut metrically is not very big. It's really not. So I think you can maybe make a case for it in a year where you get some of those weird Cinderellas getting it in. But in a year like this, no. And so because of that, I would just say in general, no. One of the best parts of this tournament is looking ahead to the bracket and who you might play and who you might match up with. The end of the day, we got a Michigan-Arizona matchup, which right now is the matchup everybody wants to see. I know it's not for the national championship, but if we reseeded this thing, you going to tell me you'd have been shocked if Connecticut beat Michigan? No. Or if Illinois beat Arizona? No. And so then we totally miss out on the Michigan-Arizona matchup altogether. At least this way we get it at some point. And I think that's the matchup everybody wants to see. So I'm good with keeping it as it is.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen. I just thought it was an interesting idea. I would not be in favor of reseeding anything but the Final Four, simply because you're already out of the region as it was set up, and you basically have 4 teams now that I think you could even take into account their performance in the tournament as to what seed they would have. For instance, Duke was the number 1 seed coming in. If Duke were to somehow have made this Final Four, I would not consider them right now to be the number 1 seed out of the 4, right? Just because of the struggle that they've had. I agree. I don't think it'll ever happen, but it would be an interesting thing to see how they would do that. And let's be honest, the only way that they will ever consider doing this if they think they can make more money off of it. There's no reason to do it otherwise.
Right.
But okay, well that's the men's Final Four that we've talked about, and you did say you had one other thing to add.
Yeah, and this is just from the bracket side of things, the bracket prediction. I was talking about this with Andrew. I think we're entering a time, if you want to make your predictions based on coaches, I think that's usually a safe thing. The good coaches do really, really well. But I think, and I'm curious to see how this plays out next year because it played out really well this year. If you're going to pick on the best coach and you got 2 good coaches going against each other, go with the younger one. Go with the younger one. I look at, Izzo and Hurley, 2 really good coaches that met in the Sweet 16. Hurley's the younger one. He won. Shire and Pitino, 2 really good coaches. Shire's the younger one. He won. You go to Michigan and Rick Barnes, Rick Barnes has really reinvented himself at Tennessee. Dusty May's so much younger than Rick Barnes. Now, did he have the better team? Of course he did. But you look at some of these, Brad Underwood's about 10 years younger than Kelvin Sampson, and Illinois dominated that game. I just feel like I look at last year where it was Todd Golden exploding onto the scene. You've got your good coaches older and your good coaches younger. But right now, I mean, Tommy Lloyd is a younger, really good coach. We're finding that these 70-year-old guys are still good, but they're not making it into the higher levels right now. They're just not. And so you look at Dusty May, you look at Tommy Lloyd, you look at Dan Hurley, the Shire at Duke. There's a few others that I'm noticing. This McCollum at Iowa, Hoiberg at Nebraska. There's kind of a younger crop that's really sort of establishing themselves, and right now they seem to have an edge over. Not that the older ones aren't doing good. I mean, Calipari and Pitino and Sampson and Izzo, they were all in the Sweet 16. They didn't advance past it. Now, they didn't have as good a teams, but you want to say, well, why don't they have as good a teams? So I don't know. I think picking a bracket based on coaches is still a good thing. We just need to reevaluate that. Just because this coach won a bunch of titles, did he win them all 20 years ago or more? Because there's a new crop of coaches that seem to be establishing themselves right now.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And on that note, if you look at Bill Self, of course, announcing yesterday that he's coming back to Kansas for next season, was seriously considering retirement. And he's thrown into that group as well as coaches. I mean, look, if your program has an opportunity to hire a Tom Izzo or a Rick Barnes or a John Calipari, right? I mean, Rick Pitino, I mean, you're going to hire those older coaches. I mean,
Yep.
they're not, we're not putting them out to the woodshed just yet. But yeah, I think it's very obvious that there is a new wave of young coaches that is coming in and has injected a different sort of energy into the game that's undeniable for sure.
Yep.